Lieutenant Ellen Louise Ripley, third officer of the commercial starship the USCSS Nostromo, died at the age of 87, not looking a day over 30 years. The unique situation she found herself in, that changed her life irreversibly, was the result of an unusually long period of hypersleep. Most citizens of the Middle Heavens have heard the story on the network broadcasts about the sole survivor of the USCSS Nostromo, but few if any individuals actually know the true reason that Ellen Ripley remained in stasis for a total of 57 years following her emergency departure on the EEV Narcissus from the doomed Nostromo. During her lifetime, Ripley became a figure of note for a multitude of superpowers within the Middle Heavens, namely the Weyland Yutani Corporation. This would come following her encounter with Xenomorph XX-121 in 2122 after the crew of the USCSS Nostromo was rerouted by company orders, and under threat of forfeiture of all shares, sent to investigate an engineer vessel located on the Moon, then known as LV-426 in the Zeta-2 Reticuli system. While the circumstances regarding what happened on board the Nostromo remain known only to those present, we do know it led to the forced destruction of the vessel, leaving Ripley as the sole survivor. However, this would not be the end for the beguiled warrant officer. After entering cryosleep, she had hoped to be reunited with her daughter Amanda. However, warrant officer Ripley would find herself awake 57 years on from her initial encounter with the xenomorphs. In today's data log, the project will delve into the events surrounding the extended stay of Ripley's cryosleep, what exactly led to such a severe mistake, and what blind luck brought the lieutenant back into the eyes of Weyland Yutani prior to the loss of the USCM's 2nd Battalion Bravo Company on the same moon that started the cycle anew. It should come as no shock that the most profound effect that Ellen Ripley's disappearance had was on her daughter, Amanda. Amanda's father had left her life at a young age, leaving her with her mother and a stepfather in Paul Carter. Eventually, Paul and Ripley would separate, leaving Amanda in the care of Paul. This would cause a plethora of problems due to Paul's self-destructive tendencies and abuse of substances. This left Amanda estranged from her stepfather, but brought her closer to her mother and her then lover, captain of the Nostromo, Arthur Dallas, of whom treated her with more care than her stepfather. After the loss of the Nostromo, it is advisable to assume Amanda was left to fend for herself. The loss of the Nostromo caught the attention of several major powers, including its contractor, Weyland Yutani. This newfound fame made the families of those lost in deep space objects of obsession for the media. This would include young Amanda. Intercepted transmissions recovered from the flight recorder would indicate that Ripley would have tried to return for Amanda's 11th birthday. This would not come to pass. Amanda Ripley would take up jobs within Weyland Yutani's workforce. Reports indicate that she left her stepfather behind once she reached an appropriate age, following her stepfather's dismissal from Weyland Yutani's employ. However, Amanda's path would lead her into the same turmoil her mother had met. As the only documented survivor of the Sevastopol incident, it seems the station befell an infestation of Xenomorph XX-121, leading to its destruction. This would follow the crew of a salvage vessel, the USCSS Anasidora, intercepting the Nostromo's flight recorder, tracing it back to the derelict engineer vessel on LV-426, only for the wife of Captain Henry Marlowe, Angela Foster, to become infected with a Xenomorph XX-121 chestburster. Taking her to Sevastopol station for treatment would inadvertently lead to the station's downfall. And while the truth of Ellen Ripley's prolonged stay in hypersleep is still considered a curious mistake, in truth it was far more sinister than initially realized by the Interstellar Commerce Commission's board and even Ripley herself. Following the Nostromo's emergency self-destruct sequence being initiated, ASH, a Hyperdyne Systems 128-2 synthetic sleeper agent sent to procure specimens of Xenomorph XX-121, would upload himself to the Nostromo's Starcub escape shuttle, the Narcissus, in an attempt to complete his mission, stowing away his consciousness, keeping Ripley adrift until an opportunity to fulfill Company Order 937 would present itself. The Narcissus, under Ash's influence, would make contact with the staff of the Kellen Mining Company's facility on LV-178 in 2159, a whole 37 years following the destruction of the USCSS Nostromo. While the exact events prior to the Narcissus' arrival are shrouded in mystery, it is assumed that the mining installation itself suffered an infestation of some kind. Tracked in orbit of the planet, the starship, the DSMO Marion, along with colony-based shuttles, the Samson and the Delilah would send out a distress call and attempt to make contact with the Narcissus. Black box reports from both shuttles indicate both carried Xenomorph XX-121 passengers. A collision between the three ships would lead to a disastrous outcome. So, Ash plotted a course to the vessel, preparing himself to finally talk with Ellen again, who he had grown to admire due to her determination against the creatures. Once awakening, Ripley would face a grim prospect: facing the truth that she had not returned to Earth but was instead aboard a ship in the vastness of space, and that the crew aboard the ship were dealing with a xenomorph problem of their own. The survivors of the ship collision attempted to board the Narcissus and flee. However, this plan would seemingly never come to pass, as Ripley along with the crew of the Marion would make their way planet-side, using the Samson in an attempt to find a working fuel cell for the Narcissus to carry the remaining survivors to safety. On their journey they would come to discover Ash and his presence within the computer systems. Aberrations across the planet-side facility's computer systems indicate they were tampered with by an outside force. Undoubtedly, the rogue synthetic seemed to have transferred his influence to the colony's computers. Using a newfound control, Ash would send the survivors along with the lieutenant to the lowest levels of the complex on LV-178, right to the initial location where the miners discovered the xenomorph XX-121 specimens. Without a responsive elevator, the crew of the Marion would find themselves trekking across the mine's deepest levels to reach a working elevator to the surface. Here Ellen Ripley, along with the rest of the surviving crew, would discover a nascent xenomorph hive. While certain reports indicate that the mine was home to a large derelict spacecraft, the project believes this craft could have belonged to an ancient race of beings, the engineers, Homo genita, or possibly an ill-documented race of canine-like beings known as the Drukathi. However, these reports have come into question. What we do know is that the surviving crew would flee into the derelict to escape a group of pursuing xenomorph XX-121. Ripley, during the stresses of the events that were occurring between Ash's meddling and xenomorph attacks, began to give her worse and worse nightmares and visions centered around her daughter Amanda. Besides this, attack after attack came from the xenomorphs, one after the other, and caused Ripley a great deal of physical and further mental damage. Escaping the mine with a working fuel cell, the crew continues to be pursued by xenomorphs, suffering multiple casualties. Once reaching the Marion, captain of the ship Christopher Hooper had set a second fuel cell to detonate within the mine, ending the xenomorph threat there. Aside from this, Ripley would require treatment after being attacked by a xenomorph likely born from either a Drukathi or an engineer. Once aboard the DSMO Marion, Ripley would be treated by a medpod, and according to the flight recorder data recovered from the Marion, it would seem that she would opt to have her memory erased through a special procedure only used once before by the Marines of the Battle of Epsilon Ceti 4 and the Beetlejuice campaigns, likely a path taken due to the sheer psychological torment that she had suffered during the preceding events. Soon after this, Ash would take control of the medpod, causing the death of Medical Officer Kassianov. Hooper would place Ripley safely back into cryosleep and erase Ash's presence from the Narcissus via a powerful virus, a tactic that unfortunately resulted in Hooper having to remain behind on the Marion as it fell to the surface of the planet. While a distress call was received from the colony, it is unknown what fate befell the true last survivor of the DSMO Marion. However, his sacrifice led to Ripley's survival and eventual recovering in 2179, 20 years later via a salvage vessel in the area. A combination of the damage to the shuttle and problems caused to its systems by Ash during his sabotage attempts resulted in it taking an additional 20 years, for a culmination of 57 years of cryosleep with no memory of the events surrounding the DSMO Marion and LV-178. However, one of the strangest effects Ripley and the Nostromo's legacy would have on the frontier would be that of its case file data. Held by company agent Carter J. Burke, it would be poached by a corporate rival. Another Weyland Yutani insurance investigator by the name of Kent Gannon would steal the data from Burke's private server and use it to make his way into a clandestine organization by the name of Deep Void, then run by the United States Colonial Marine Corps Assistant Commandant General Delilah S. Vaughn. While it is unknown if Gannon's bid was successful, what is known is his last known location was over O'Bannon's world during the Frontier War under General Vaughn's orders. If you really want to support what we do here and gain a bunch of awesome rewards, consider joining as a Project ACHERON channel member like company representatives, the Sith Lord 906, Lewis Perkins, Jack Fleming Jr. and Scott&Lou, or like our team member Daniel Lee, Ambrosia and CMDR Verb. And even project trainees like Ethan Feldman, Kroll's Chaos, Kim Sorensen and FM11B. But next transmission, this is Project ACHERON bringing the knowledge and the power directly to you.